Steve Buscemi is here. You know him as Mr. Pink in Reservoir Dogs, Donnie the Bowler in The Big Lebowski, and Tony Soprano's cousin on HBO. He's also directed critically acclaimed independent films. The latest is Interview. It is a remake of a movie by the slain Dutch filmmaker Theo van Gogh. Buscemi co-wrote and stars in the version with Sienna Miller. Here is the trailer for The Interview. This has been a busy year for Steve Buscemi. He also appears in, I now pronounce you, Chuck and Larry. He has two more projects, Tom DiCello's Delirious, and a documentary about the Clash's frontman, Joe Strummer. I am pleased to have him back at this table. Welcome.
Thank you, Charlie.
You are busy.
I am a little busy, but that's good. I like to be busy.
Do you like being thought of as a filmmaker more than anything else?
Well, yeah, it's always very flattering if somebody considers me a filmmaker, because I don't know how many people really know that I also do that. I mean, most people know me just as an actor. So whenever anybody says that they've seen a film I've directed, this is only the fourth film I've directed, some episodes of The Sopranos and other shows.
And most people don't know
I'm thrilled that if people think of me that way, because I would like to do more of it.
You would?
Yeah,
absolutely. In
absolutely.
terms of what balance would you like to have?
Well, I mean, I've been lucky that I've been able to make my living from acting, and that's how I think I will always, make my living, hopefully. So the directing projects that I choose, I'm not so concerned if they pay well, if I think they're going to be a commercial success. I'm more interested in that because it's just something that I care more about. You know, when I was doing theater with Mark Boone Jr. in the '80s in the East Village, we were about creating our own work, writing it, performing in it, producing it, directing it. And when I started doing films, I really missed having that creative responsibility, and that much creative input. So that's what it's about for me, directing. I mean, I never really had designs on being a director. But after I wrote Trees Lounge and showed it to a number of my friends who were directors and hoping that they would they would want to direct it, most of them only directed their own work, their own scripts, and so I was encouraged by them. People like Alexander Rockwell and Tom DiCello, Jim Jarmusch, they encouraged me to do it myself.
But you can't imagine giving up acting. No,
and I think. Part of the reason for doing Interview was that it was also a great role to play. So, and I hadn't, tried that since Trees Lounge, where I'm one of the leads and also directing, which I find challenging, but I'm glad I did it.
This is a film about a guy who was a foreign correspondent, and now finds himself sort of on bad luck, and he's out. He's a print reporter. He's now interviewing.
Well, I think but I think it's all how he, looks at it, because there's probably, as you find out in the film, there's good reason why he was moved from what he was doing, and in fact, his editor is probably doing him a huge favor, by at least keeping him working at the magazine and actually giving him a good assignment. But he just sees the negative side to it and sort of. Judges her to be something that she's not, and she's much more than he actually bargains for.
But he's honest with himself, and so that he tells her.
Yeah.
And he makes clear to her, I don't want to be here. This is not what I do.
Right.
And I find no great pride in this assignment.
Right. And I think for her, she, she's offended, but I also think she is kind of taken with that attitude. She doesn't often meet somebody that will just be that honest.
Because she's a character herself.
Yeah, and so I think she sort of takes that as a challenge. And yes, when she leaves the restaurant, she, would probably have been fine if she never saw him again. But when this opportunity arises with this accident that she almost feels responsible for, it's a chance to sort of make up and start over, but also a chance to play with this guy.
Sienna Miller accepted the role without reading the script, and basically you called her up and said, would you like to do this?
Yeah.
And she says yes, because she wanted to work with you. Now, was it because she wanted to work with you as an actor or a director?
I don't know. Maybe both. I know she had at least seen Trees Lounge, and she was a fan of that, and she knew my work as an actor, and it was really flattering and a relief to offer somebody a role.
Yeah.
And usually it takes...
Who's perfect for the role.
She was perfect. And it usually takes weeks, if not months, for people to get back to. And she just signed on right away.
And there was no serious negotiation about money or anything else, because you didn't have a huge budget.
No, we had a very tight budget. In fact, we even lost the money originally. Originally, these were supposed to be 3 films. The origin of the project is that Theo Van Gogh had 3 of his own films that he wanted to remake as American films.
Right.
And so his Dutch producing partner and American producer were looking for 3 directors, and they were specifically looking for actor directors because the pieces are so performance-driven, and Theo loved actors. So they approached me. Stanley Tucci, in the beginning it was Bob Balaban. He has since had to drop out. I think John Turturro is going to direct the 3rd installment. But originally, since they were shot, we only had 9 days to shoot this. They were all going to be shot back-to-back using the same crew and using the Dutch camera crew that Theo worked with. And I was slated to go 3rd. Stanley was the first up. He got to a week before shooting, and he had rehearsals done and the set picked out, and Tony Shalhoub was to play the part, and Patricia Clarkson. A week before, the money just fell through. For everything, because we were all supposed to be financed together.
Right.
So then after that, it was every filmmaker for himself. And we were able to find the money for our film. But I'm glad to say that Stanley they did find the money for his film, and he actually did get to shoot it. But Tony was not available, so Stanley played the part.
So, and then that's been shot and will be...
That's shot, and he's editing now.
Okay. Yep. I mean, it's very interesting, the group of actors there, all that you just mentioned, from Bob and Stanley and Tony. I mean, these are all sort of what we would think of as New York actors who just love the craft of theater and the craft of acting.
Yeah, and I think, we've all known each other for a long time, and, and I think there's a reason that we do all live in New York. There is, there is an energy here, and there is, I think, an appreciation of, theater and all the other arts, and I think we all love character-driven films. And when I watched the original, I just wanted to be a part of it. I just thought, it's so rare that you get to see a film where it's just 2 actors, going toe-to-toe, and complex characters, unpredictable. You like one of them 1 minute, you're rooting for one and not the other, and then it switches, and then sometimes you can't decide. And these are the kinds of films that I love, so I wanted to be involved immediately. Did
you know Theo before he was killed?
I did not know him at all. No.
And so you never met him? You just knew the films?
Never met him. No, and I didn't even... I didn't know of his work before he was killed. I mean, I knew his name, but that was probably more to do with, his name being the same as his great-grandfather, who was the brother of Vincent van Gogh. Right. So when he was killed, I mean, I do remember reading about that and, feeling sad about that. We're like the same age. He has a son also the same age as my son. And that level, I really identified with him.
Shot down on the streets of...
Yeah. While he was on his way to the editing room for the last film that he directed. So when the offer came in the beginning, I was just curious to see the films, to just see these, any of his films. And so I watched the 3 that he wanted to remake, and I love them all.
And how is what you did different?
I mean, we changed some of the plot points, some of the details. I think it's mostly different in the casting, in that I'm a different actor than Pierre Boekma, who did the original, and the original was done by her name. We used the real names of the actors who used their real names as characters in the film. Katja Sherman was in the original. But we really tried to keep true to the spirit of the original, which are 2 strangers coming together and making a connection. They're from seemingly different worlds, and after a disastrous beginning, somehow they do make a connection that's real. And what they do to sabotage that or put up obstacles, why it falls apart. When I saw the original, I felt like I was watching, a long-time couple going through a breakup, and yet they were just getting to know each other, and I found that fascinating.
Someone might ask about why you were cast as the lead actor here, and here's what you said. Here's the thing about all these characters that I play. I think there's a humanity within them that I have to find, or else I can't play them. So yeah, they can do unlikable things and really despicable things, and that's really for the audience to decide for themselves whether they like the character or not. My way into the character has to be something I can identify with on some level. With Pierre, I did like him, or I felt for him.
Yeah, I mean, he was a family guy who suffered tragedy in his family, and just imagining that, I felt for the guy. So, yeah, he did some questionable things and unethical things, but I think I was interested in the reasons that, got him there and why he would choose to do the things that he does.
Take a look at this. This is another clip from Interview. I look with enthusiasm because it's part of the culture. It's part of what influences people. Right. Movies and books and music and fashion all influence our politics.
Well, I think Pierre's biggest mistake is the attitude that he goes in with, and that's what sort of gets him into trouble. But ironically, it's the thing that sort of piques her interest too. That who is this guy that can come in here and treat me like this?
Yeah, you were sort of, as the actor, as Pierre, you have to, as the actor playing Pierre, you have to sort of show somebody kind of being reeled in terms of attractiveness to her. Yeah. Yeah,
but I also think that he's insecure and about even being in the same room with her, and so that's another reason his defenses are up, and he feels a need to impress her or to look down upon her.
Or to look down or put her down because he's not comfortable. He doesn't feel comfortable.
He's so insecure.
With her, because whereas he'd be very comfortable with some military person or a political person because that's what he knows.
Right.
But he doesn't know her world.
He has no idea what he's doing there. And even though he says he hasn't read the brief about her, he hasn't seen any of her films. I played with the notion that he did. I mean, he sat there for almost an hour waiting for her. He probably did read it.
Exactly.
And but he just doesn't. He can't bring himself to admit that that I want to do this.
Yeah. He can't acknowledge that he's a participant in it.
Right.
The Sopranos.
Yes.
How many episodes did you direct?
I directed 4. The first one was in the 3rd season, and then the last one was in the 6th season. So I didn't have anything to do with the final season.
Yeah, but you thought it was brilliant. The final episode you thought was brilliant.
I loved it, yeah.
You loved it because?
It had me on the edge of my seat. I couldn't figure out how he was going to end it, and I was very anxious because the preceding episodes, I thought, went down such a dark road that I was almost dreading the ending because I couldn't take any more. I couldn't take any more violence. I couldn't take any more. The whole thing with AJ got me really upset, and so if anything did happen to Tony or the family at the end, I was glad I didn't have to witness it. And I just thought it was brilliant the way that he, built up that tension and just ended.
Screen goes blank.
Yeah, I was relieved, and at first I guess that there is a feeling like of, well, wait a minute, but then I even loved that. I loved that he took us there, and
did you instantly know what he had done, or did you say maybe something's wrong here, or what?
For a nanosecond, I thought, but then I went, nope. This is it. I was watching with my wife and my son, and we all were like, and then I went, no, that's it. That's it.
You have a fine sense of good movie acting and good acting and good directing and good filmmaking. How good is The Sopranos?
I think
in the context of everything, movies, theater, television.
Well, I think it's the best. I really think it's, not only the best television show that's been on, but I think it's really better than most movies or can compare with any of the greatest films. And they did it week after week, you know, for 7 seasons, which I think is an amazing feat. The writing, the directing, the cast was just top notch across the boards.
Why did they end it?
It was, you know, that it got harder for Jimmy. I think that character, you know, really took a lot out of him, and he invested so much of himself in it, and you know, I think it was hard for him to sustain that. So I think, in some ways, he was really okay with it ending. I think some of the other cast members, wanted it to continue.
Yeah. For an actor to be so identified with such a prominent role for so long, good thing or bad thing?
Well, I think it's probably both. I mean, whatever project that he wants to do next, he can hopefully get it made because you know, of the work that he's done, the brilliant work that he's done on that show.
Right.
But yeah, people are always, you know, for the rest of his life, I think people will stop him on the street
and say, Tony,
hey, Tony.
Exactly.
It's, you know, that's what's going to happen.
Dustin Hoffman, you know, after he did Graduate, he immediately went to play that thing with John Voight. You know, he said, I want
to just
Ratso,
go
he played Ratso.
the opposite
I want to
direction.
do something dramatically different right away, so he wouldn't be identified so much as this character.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what Jimmy does next. I loved working with him. There's a movie that John Turturro directed a few years ago that it's finally getting a release called Romance and Cigarettes that Jimmy is in, and I'm in it, and Susan Sarandon has a wonderful cast. So that will also be coming out soon.
Tell me about Delirious.
Delirious is a movie that I made with my old friend Tom DiCillo, who wrote and directed Living in Oblivion, which is one of my favorite parts in movies that I've done. And in it, I play the other side of the media. I play a paparazzo who, different from Pierre, he really wants to be on the inside. He really wants to be in the the middle of the celebrity culture, but seems to be at odds with various publicists who tried to keep him away. And he ends up befriending this homeless kid played by Michael Pitt and taking him under his wing, showing him the ropes, and but then he sort of exploits the relationship. Michael ends up befriending a pop singer, gets invited to a party, and my character starts taking photographs at the party because he just can't help himself, and that sort of almost ruins the relationship. And again, for me, the movie, my interest in it was less about making a comment on celebrity culture or the media, but I just love the relationship between these two characters of this, sort of older photographer who befriends this young guy and is desperate to make a connection, and once he does, finds a way to sabotage it.
What's the most important thing you've ever learned about acting?
I think to put as much of myself into any role that I play, it all starts with me, and it helps to have great directors, and I've been lucky that I've worked with so many of the great ones. But yeah, when I get a script, I always look to see how much of myself that I could put into it.
How much of myself means how much of my own experiences that I can draw on, or my own personality, my own mindset, my own.
I think all of that. Something that I can relate to and play with, and that is the fun of doing this. I mean, especially when I get to play anybody who's bad. That's just fun.
And you today as an actor versus say 10 years ago, what's the difference? I mean, physically you're different, chronologically you're different, but for the craft of acting.
I don't know. I think the difference is in what I'm looking to do. I mean, 10 years ago, like I said, I didn't necessarily want to direct Trees Lounge.
Right.
And now I find myself directing more, and it's nice having done almost two films almost back to back, Lonesome Jim, and now Interview. And I hope there's even less time before I direct my next one. But I think I'm also looking for roles that, besides, look, playing Tony B on The Sopranos,
right,
I think was the ultimate bad guy role, and so I think I'm looking to do less of that and more characters like the guy in Pierre,
right,
and Delirious. Even though they're wildly different guys, but they're both complicated guys and have a story to them, and I think have a lot of heart.
How well do you know Adam Sandler?
Pretty well. I love Adam, and I'm always thrilled when he asked me to be a part of his work. It's been a while, so it was nice to get to work with him again.
So when he said, "I want you to join me on," I now pronounce you Chuck and Larry. You said immediately yes. I
always like to read the script. I always like to see what he's up to, but yeah, when he calls, it's almost like that. Like, okay, I'll do it. But I really liked what they were dealing with in that script, and it is a broad comedy. But I liked the fact that it was two guys who, I think Adam's character more than Kevin James, who's a bit homophobic. They come up with this, scheme to get married so that the one character can have benefits for his kids insurance-wise. He doesn't trust to marry a woman. He just wants to make sure that the person that he does marry really will he can trust with his kids. It gets out, and now they really have to pretend that they're gay, and they really learn what that means. And so I did like what it was saying about gay marriage in particular. I can't believe that in this country that it's still an issue. Being gay and being in the military, I can't believe that that's still an issue. It just seems in this age of, the war on terror that we would be turning away any capable and willing soldier.
Yeah. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much, Charlie. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Interview and Delirious. Steve Buscemi, thank you for joining us. See you next time.